Yeah, even pros mess up sometimes. How's it going, guys? Hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. I'm Stray, and today we'll be taking a look at 3 more bad habits that'll stop you from ranking up. So with that said, let's jump into it.
The first bad habit that we're going to be talking about is always pulling out your knife. It's a bad habit that a lot of people struggle with, including me, but it's especially prevalent with people that just got their first knife or are just big fans of the way that their knife looks. Always pulling out your knife might seem like a great idea at first because you can show off how nice your knife looks to all your teammates when you're in a clutch, for example. But it's also something that you'll quickly regret once you come across an enemy suddenly. He's just standing there with his weapon out, ready for anyone to come around the corner. Meanwhile, you're not quite able to return fire right away because you have your knife out. And because the guy is probably jealous of your knife and the way it looks, and yes, even if you have a stock knife, he won't stop to take a look, but rather, he'll just shoot you in the face. I know, it's quite rude, but guess what? The enemy just doesn't care. He's got no manners. And thus your great idea of showing off will be heavily punished. Honestly though, dying with a knife out is something that has happened numerous times to me, and I've seen happen way too many times to my teammates. So now it really has to stop. So how do you stop that? Well, in order to stop yourself, you first have to know where the habit is coming from. And it could stem from 2 main causes. The first one is simply not knowing where your opponents could be, and you're trying to get to another part of the map faster. If that's the case, it's honestly a lot more excusable, but it's something you can quite easily get rid of by having a good look at the radar and see what is and isn't being held. If you're unsure if an enemy can be close, the best thing you can do is just have your gun ready to go. You don't run that much slower with the gun out, but you will be able to react a whole lot faster. Basically, whenever in doubt, have your gun out. That's a rule that almost always applies, but there are certain exceptions, and the most common one is when you're really low on time and need to plant a bomb somewhere else you couldn't otherwise have gotten in time. If you have to get to the A site really quickly and you're unsure if there's opponents there or not, a lot of the time it's better to keep your knife out and risk it than it is to run out of time and losing to the clock. The reason that you see pros running with their knife out a lot also has to do a lot with this reason. Either they have to really get somewhere or they simply know it's clear. If you ever see a player that's better than you run long distances with their knife out, you could even try to ask them what the reason was. I'm sure they either knew it was clear for whatever reason or they had simply no time otherwise. The other reason for always having your knife out though is a lot less pretty, and it's simply because you really like inspecting your knife. A lot of people have the habit of looking at their knife or weapon skins whenever there is an opportunity to do so, and pulling out your knife for that reason is a bad habit that a lot of people have. Like I talked about in an earlier example that I gave you, it's gonna cost you rounds and probably games, so you need to get rid of it. But how? Well, it's going to suck, but if you really want to play better and not die due to stupid reasons like randomly pulling out your knife, you're simply going to have to unbind the inspect key. I know. If you can't take the responsibility of being able to inspect your weapon, it's probably best to strip yourself from that ability. And I know, you love your skins and you love inspecting them, but if you really want to win, it's best to get rid of that habit quickly now. And then maybe if you're no longer addicted to inspecting, you can slowly but surely allow yourself to use the function again. No, but seriously though guys, pulling out your knife at suboptimal moments is something a lot of people struggle with, and the only real way to deal with it is by either having a lot of focus on not doing it, or more easily, just unbinding it. You'll quickly realize that your knife or skin isn't doing the inspect animation anymore, and it'll look less satisfying, and thus you'll stop doing it soon enough. Just make sure once you rebind it, you don't start with the same bad habit again. Before we move on to our second bad habit though, it's of course time for our, you guessed it, question of the day. Today's question being, what do you guys think about the new skins added in the operation? For me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I really do like that op fade. But what about you guys? Make sure to let me know in the comments down below. Another big mistake that I see tons of players making, even in the higher ranks, is not trying to read the game, especially during clutches or when the time is low. CSGO has a pretty obvious meta on most maps. On Inferno, for example, you almost always have 3 on A and 2 on B on the CT side. So because of that, when you kill one player on B, you can pretty much assume safely that there's only one left, even though a teammate from A is probably on his way rotating. Or if you rush up Banana and see that there's one player in CT, you can pretty much assume that the other player is either on site, coffins, or just got boosted onto flower pots. Either way, if you just spotted a counter terrace in CT, it is prime time to smoke it and take the 1v1, or if you have a teammate, maybe even a 2v1 in order to secure the site. Normally when you take a site, you'll have to fight at least 2 players, but if you go in at that exact time frame where you just spotted, for example an Opera CT, and you manage to quickly smoke it, then there can only be 1 player on the bomb site. So if you take the fight now, you only have to win one duel and you're on the bomb site for free. Sure, you'll probably have to deal with the Opera that was CT'd earlier as well, but that'll be when he's around Coffin or Church, and by that time, you and your teammates will already be able to be on the bomb site by then, so you'll have a huge advantage. It doesn't always have to result in a play though. You could also just use the common knowledge when clutching. Let's say you're in a 1v3 and you just spotted a CT jump spotting at the top of Banana. So where are the other two players? Simple. Both players are on A. The guy jump spotting is alone and is just hoping to get info in case you'll push there, so he can call for rotation. That means you can either choose to go to A and fight a 1 versus 2, or you could push up Banana, force the CT back, and maybe even try to get a kill, or you could even fake going Banana in order to get the guy to call for a rotation only to go A seconds after. There's a lot of plays you can do, but it all starts by seeing what info you have and knowing what you can assume off of it. And of course, there are going to be times where your opponents are just playing strangely and really aren't just making any sense. Maybe they're randomly stacking bomb sites or are doing completely nonsensical setups, but if that's the case, you can just change up your playstyle and be a little bit more paranoid. Expect the unexpected. The issue a lot of players have though is that they always play the paranoid style, so don't assume that certain areas are clear just because they got a single piece of information. Basically, they don't attempt to try to solve the rest of the puzzle from the little information that they do have. And although yes, in certain cases, that's going to save your life because you didn't run into that random stack because of it. But even still, a whole lot more of the time, you're going to miss out on easy round winning plays and clutches because you are too scared to assume the obvious. If you just spotted a player in CT on B, you should go for the play and try to isolate that duel to win the round off of it. Sure, every now and then, you might run into a third B player and lose your life because of it, but even then, it's valuable information that could allow your team to rush into a 4v2. I personally think the reason people get this habit is from playing in lower ranks. In Silver, a lot of the times, people don't really think when they're playing, and randomly stacking bomb site isn't all too uncommon to see. But once you rank up and get to the higher ranks, you'll be safe to assume a lot more again. So do that and win rounds. Today's final bad habit, and something that I used to really struggle with a lot, is getting scared when spotting an opponent unexpectedly. Back in the days, whenever I run into an opponent that was in a position that was just completely unexpected, I'd basically be jump scared. Jump scared to the point where I would literally accidentally press space and jump in game. I have a mechanical keyboard with red switches, so the tiniest bits of pressure would activate my space key and make me jump because of it. So if I was shocked at my enemy's positioning and moved my thumb even slightly, I'd jump up. And of course, since you can't really jump and shoot accurately at the same time in Counter-Strike, it would ultimately mean that I'd die every time it happened. And although it didn't really happen all too often, maybe once every 2 or 3 games, it would still cost me that crucial gun duel. And with the amount of games I played that ended in really close with scorelines like 16-14 or matchmaking even 15-15, I know that winning one extra duel per game could have a tremendous effect on the amount of games you win. So, how did I get rid of it? Did I buy a new keyboard? Change my switches for spacebar? No. It's actually something even simpler. I simply just unbound the spacebar entirely. And even though I still press spacebar accidentally a lot of the times when I'm playing, so my habit isn't really fixed, it's no longer an issue because instead of making me jump, it now just does nothing. At first, I tried focusing on positioning my fingers differently to not have my thumbs leaning on the spacebar or at least let it lean more lightly, but at the end of the day, that was a lot of effort. I already had mouse wheel down bound to jump as well, and to be honest, I didn't really need to have it on space too. In some games, it's definitely true that you do need to have it on space. For example, Valorant, where if you want to glide with Jet, you'll have to hold it down. But in CSGO, it's really not necessary at all. And if I want to play those other games, you can also bind your left alt key instead. It's right next to spacebar, but you won't press it on accident. So all you have to do to get rid of this annoying habit is to change your binds and you're already good to go. And if you really want, you can even replace it with left alt if you play a lot of other games. Easy enough.
Well, that's all for this video. Hopefully you guys didn't feel too personally attacked. If you guys did enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below what other bad habits you see players develop. We all got them, but the best way to beat them is by heading over to ProGuides.com, where you can access courses by pros like the legend himself, Simple. With that said, I wish you guys a great rest of your day and the best of luck improving. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.